Insanity defense versus competency to stand trial. Insanity defense argues that the defendant was not responsible for their actions due to mental illness at the time of the crime. For example, a defendant claims they were in a psychotic state and could not understand right from wrong during the offense. Competency to stand trial determines if the defendant is mentally capable of understanding the trial process and participating in the defense. For example, a defendant is evaluated to see if they can comprehend the charges against them and work with their lawyer. Insanity defense focuses on the defendant's mental state at the time the crime was committed. For example, a defendant argues they were delusional when they committed a violent act. Competency to stand trial focuses on the defendant's current mental state during the legal proceedings. For example, a defendant may be deemed incompetent to stand trial due to severe depression affecting their ability to communicate with their attorney. For insanity defense, if successful, the defendant may be found not guilty by reason of insanity and typically committed to a mental health facility. For example, a defendant is sent to a psychiatric hospital instead of prison after a successful insanity defense. For competency to stand trial, if found incompetent, the trial is delayed until the defendant's mental state improves. For example, a defendant receives treatment to restore competency before the trial can proceed. Insanity defense requires proving the defendant was unable to distinguish right from wrong or unable to control their actions due to mental illness. For example, using the Norton rule to argue that the defendant did not understand their actions were wrong. Competency to stand trial requires showing that the defendant lacks the ability to understand the trial process or assist in the defense. For example, a court orders a psychological evaluation to determine if the defendant can follow the proceedings. Insanity defense directly affects the final verdict, potentially leading to an acquittal. For example, a defendant is acquitted of murder after proving they were legally insane at the time. Competency to stand trial does not impact the guilt or innocence of the defendant but determines when or if the trial can proceed. For example, a trial is postponed because the defendant is found incompetent to participate.